Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3, Episode 19. It's called Captain's Holiday. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. This episode sees Picard under some stress. He's been maybe working, burning at both ends a little bit too long, and everyone on the ship, starting with Troy, and then Crusher, and then Riker, and then everyone just kind of like basically plots and schemes to convince him to take a vacation because he's never really taken one since joining the Enterprise. So he reluctantly agrees to go to this place because they're doing like maintenance on the ship for a week anyway. Nothing major's happening, so they convince him.
He's insisting that he needs to be there to oversee it, but he clearly doesn't.
So he agrees to go to this resort planet to just sunbathe and read and relax for a week. But of course, once he gets there, there's a plot, there's a bit of an adventure that ensues, a bit of romance even, and that is the general idea of the episode. I think I would start my thoughts on this episode with, it's very amusing for the first 10 minutes, and then unfortunately the plot starts to get going, and it kind of just plummets downhill from there.
Yeah, it feels like they wanted to do kind of a James Bond, Indiana Jones sort of kind of adventure with Picard, and it doesn't really work. Like they're playing all those beats, but it just doesn't land for a lot of it.
I'm not convinced that it couldn't work necessarily. With a story like that with Picard, I think my problem is just that the actual plot itself is so, I don't know, it feels so just thrown together. Like, the MacGuffin's just like, item from the future is around, and these two fish-looking aliens show up and...
I'm not saying it couldn't work either. I'm just saying it doesn't land here. Not that it couldn't land. I'm sure with some capable writing, that could be a very fun episode with that kind of style in mind.
I mean, I guess giving him this little adventure and a bit of romance for a week, it's something we've not really seen Picard have or really do, beyond some flirting with Crusher. I guess that's kind of the sell of this episode and why they thought it was a good idea to do something different, to do something where we barely see the rest of the crew. We see a few of them at the start and the end, but other than that, they're gone. It's just a Picard episode where he's with this woman named Vash, who, which by the way is such an awkward name.
I'm like 80% sure it was intentional, and it's in keeping with Bond girl names.
This is their pussy galore, is what you're saying.
Oh, that's tame on some of the Bond names. You wouldn't believe.
I'll take your word for it. I really don't want to go digging. So, he goes to the trip. There's some fun. I mean, because there were some genuine funny moments in the first 5-10 minutes. I laughed pretty hard. Troy's tactic to make him want to leave the ship for the week, saying that her mother was coming by, and Patrick Stewart's performance as he reacts to this, he's like, "Oh really?" And then she's like, "Yeah," and she said how much she was looking forward to seeing you again. Is that right?
Riker, a word.
Yes, and of course, once he goes in the other room, it's like, okay, he actually kind of gets what they're doing here. This is all just a tactic. Troy knows what she's doing.
It's a threat rather than a tactic. Because I bet she could have arranged for her mother to be there and be like, "Look, you can stay and see her, or you can run for your vacation. That's your choice."
And what's funny is that episode that it's kind of, I mean, it's referencing two episodes really, but the main one that it's referencing, the last time she showed up, the mother, that actually ended up being a really fun episode that was way better than it had any right to be. And I feel like that's kind of probably the tone they wanted for this one. And for the first 5-10 minutes, it was kind of doing it. Like, honestly, I could have watched 45 minutes of Picard try to read his book and just be constantly interrupted. I could have taken 40 minutes of that and been
Me too.
Immensely entertained. I really could have. Him realising that the statue that Riker asked him to get for him at the gift shop was some sort of weird, hey, I'm out for sex sort of symbol.
I love when he realises, he's like, damn you, Riker.
Yeah. And the one little joke I liked at the end was when Picard just sort of says, he kind of mumbles and says, yes, it was a fine time, and he walks away into his ready room, and Riker just sort of smiles, goes, yeah, see, I told you to have a good time. That cracked me up. The actual holiday antics or amusing. But unfortunately, once the plot gets going, where this woman is hiding this disc from a Ferengi, what's on the disc? Oh, it's the location to a secret artifact. It's actually from the future, and these two fish aliens are also from the future. And they read in the history books that Picard's going to find the thing, so they're here to retrieve the thing. And there's so much exposition about what this stupid MacGuffin is. It's something to do with the nuclear reactions in a star or some bollocks. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just all MacGuffin nonsense that doesn't mean anything. The whole point of it is just to give Picard this like sort of awkward buddy team up thing with this woman, which is kind of leading to romance. It does lead to a night of passion in the cave, and it's a side of Picard we've never seen before. But honestly, every step of the way, whether it's the Ferengi holding them at gunpoint, asking them where the disc is, whether it's the actual romantic elements, whether it's when they get to the cave and the aliens show up and they want to see things, and it turns out the woman's actually already found it anyway. Vash already had it, and she kind of was lying about all this just to sort of trick the Ferengi. Like, all of this stuff, it's just so dull, and none of it feels like it really means anything. And it's not that, and I feel like sometimes when I say that, people take that to mean I'm talking about it's not important to continuity. Very few episodes of this show have heavy continuity outside of character continuity. The important, and many episodes have felt very important in their own right. This is purely a criticism of how the writing in this episode doesn't make any of its actual plot feel either special or unique or fun,
just relevant.
I mean, but even that's fairly contextual in the sense that, okay, if this is supposed to be a pulpy adventure with Picard, then it shouldn't necessarily feel that relevant in the grand scheme of things. But what it should feel is that it's like Picard's much needed release, and I don't actually think it achieves that.
There's like one scene in the middle of the plot that I think works, and it's when they they go down to sleep, and they're like, "Look, admit it, you're enjoying this," and him having to be like, "Yeah, all right, relaxing isn't really for me. This is, him getting his teeth into something, but something unofficial is enjoyable for him." That's like a nice beat. It's just kind of thrown out there in the middle of it.
I actually think the whole aliens from the future element is
unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. It's extremely tacked on. It's the problem I think I have with it is that if you want to give this fun pulpy vibe where it is just kind of a rompy thing with this future alien thing where they actually might be lying and they might be evil aliens from the future who want this for their own nefarious schemes, that just adds so much like pretend stakes to what's going on that it's hard to just enjoy the jovial nature of what the plot's supposed to feel like.
And let's not forget that element of actually being suspicious of them is just kind of thrown out there in the last 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, it's right at the very end. Because every time something comes up, Vash then brings up new exposition about where she got the information from, or this scientist she used to work with, or what the Ferengi did and how she stole the thing. It's every couple of minutes there's new exposition adding on more details to the backstory, and it just lost me very quickly. Even the first time that he comes to speak to her, because she hides the disc in his pocket when he's trying to leave her at the beach side or the poolside, and he comes to sort of say, "Hey, you looking for this?" And she's like, "Yeah, sorry, I had it on you." That scene then devolves into her just explaining what she's looking for, yada yada, and he's already met the aliens at this point, so he's like, "Ah, well, you're looking for this, aren't you?" And the entire conversation just it was everything I don't like about, when I talk about not liking spy movies, I feel like this is the type of thing I don't like. And obviously there's better written spy movies and there's better examples of it that do it better, but this is kind of what a lot of those things feel like to me, is this scene and this plot.
I get it. I can't help but feel like this episode is just framed in the wrong place. I think so. All these stories that she's telling about how she acquired this and this is what it's going to do. I feel like if you kind of force Picard to have to help her acquire it and keep it away from the Ferengi and actually kind of go down that route, it's maybe more fun rather than doing the aliens from the future.
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of wish the stakes weren't actually that good. If anything, it feels like it's crying out for a joke ending where the thing that they're fighting over is actually just something completely worthless and unimportant. Some sort of like, hey, none of this was actually that big of a deal. It was just like the two of them were treating it this way, and Picard kind of got roped into it. And that's kind of because there's actually a really meta line at the start that I like when Crusher comes in to convince him to go on a holiday, and she's like, hey, there's a crew member who's stressed, and he's working too hard, he needs a vacation, and he quickly realizes she's talking about him. And he's saying, oh, well, maybe I can make a few hours in the holodeck or something. He's like, no, screw the holodeck. You have to do something real. I almost felt like a meta joke there of like, yes, it's always a holodeck. Let's actually do something that's away somewhere else. And but at the same time, bizarrely, it kind of still feels like a holodeck episode.
I get where you're coming from with that sentiment, yeah. I just feel like the stuff right at the start between, on the holiday with him, getting interrupted by the Ferengi and then by her, and then kind of getting caught up in the middle of them. That had so much potential to be fun, like just to kind of get caught in between those two. Yeah, but it very quickly devolves into, oh no, this is a serious thing.
Yeah, if it had been like this series of hijinks where he keeps trying to just stay away from it, and it's almost like just a comedy episode where no matter what he does, he ends up in the middle of their dispute. Like,
I think it'd be interesting to see him taking each, so he starts off on Vash's side here, and then he's like, hang on, I don't trust you, this, and ends up, taking the Ferengi side in the next thing, and kind of going back and forth between them almost.
Yeah, I think what I'm describing is just something more fun, and I get that the plot of this is supposed to be fun, but honestly, the actual plot itself, whether it's just because it's a series of tropes that feel familiar, whether it's because the writing just isn't there to make it work, but honestly, all I felt was just a series of tropes about a MacGuffin, and it's the type of like, and I hate to call any kind of writing lazy, because writing's very hard, but it feels lazy in this sense because I can just see the matrix code of it. I can just see the MacGuffin. We talk about MacGuffin. We go for MacGuffin. We need MacGuffin. MacGuffin's very important. Let's band together to get MacGuffin. And even
can we stop saying MacGuffin, please?
And even Vash's character, she's very kind of like, she's Marianne from Raiders of the Lost Ark. She's that character. She's feisty. Yeah. She's just that exact archetype.
It's why I say this feels like it's a cross between a Bond and Indiana Jones, and there's just, it's not really nailing the best elements of either, and it just kind of falls flat because of that. But I like the idea of doing those episodes.
Bond doesn't have best elements, shut up.
Screw you, Bond has great. The clear inspiration of Bond on Indiana Jones is so much to talk about in that regard. There are so many best elements.
Nah. Bond sucks. There's something really troubling about your episode when my complaint is once the plot got started, it fell apart. Like that is literally like I was enjoying just grumpy Picard dealing with the surroundings and him trying to do something normal, and it becoming more of a generic story. Not even generic to Star Trek per se, because Star Trek doesn't do this particular story ever, if often, right? But the fact that it just becomes this generic archetype of a thing, and keep in mind, this episode aired in 1989, 1990, something like that. So this would have been right after Last Crusade in terms of like theatre releases. This has been right around then.
Yeah, that's fresh in people's minds. It's in the zeitgeist.
So it's hard not to see that, even what they're wearing when they're going off and they're digging, and she's even an archaeologist. I think she says that at one point. So
she does, and at the end she's like, "Oh yeah, any space for an archaeologist on the ship?"
Yeah, and the truth be told, I mean, I don't think we're ever supposed to like want them to stay together. It was never meant to be that type of relationship. It was always going to be a fling that was just a one and done. But even in that capacity, I found it really hard to care or want to get into it, because there's definitely examples of this in other TV shows where I'll know going in this is clearly just a one episode thing, but it's still important to the character's progression, or at the very least it's in and of itself it'll be engaging, in and of itself it'll prove to play on the character's tendencies and tropes and challenge them even to get these different reactions. And I think that's why when we talk about those first 10 or so minutes, yeah, like, this is Picard in this situation we've not seen him in, and he's being challenged, and we're seeing how he reacts to this, that, and ever. Just the fact that he's in a bathing suit, and he's sitting and he's sitting there, and there's a Ferengi in his shadow, and he's complaining about the sun being blocked. It's a different situation to what we're used to seeing him in. It's challenging in a way that feels in character. So
it is, because it feels very familiar for him to be grumpy like that.
So when it gets to the plot and it just devolves into, no, this is just adventure plot A that feels like some direct-to-video knockoff of a famous movie franchise, it just, anything interesting about it just goes out the window. And it's not like painful to sit through, but it still might be my least favorite episode of the season. I think the sheer just nothingness.
I think it would be harsh to call it the worst episode of the season.
I never said that. I said
no. I know. I'm getting that. I'm saying I think it would be harsh to call it the worst, but least favorite might be a fair terminology for it.
Yeah, I think it bothers me more because it just.
We've said this in the past, that sometimes an aggressively mediocre thing is worse than something that is actively bad, because it's just it's more unengaging to watch.
we've said that a bunch of times, but I think this is different even to that, in the sense that, I mean, that's still true for this, but the fact that it went out of its way to do a thing, it went out of its way to do this story, this we're going to do Indiana Jones, we're going to do this type of thing, and just play the beats of it. And it's not that that's a bad thing in the larger sense. I love Die Hard episodes of TV shows. I love 12 Angry Men episodes of TV shows. Many examples of these things have been done where they'll take the famous movie archetype of a thing and do it, and it can work really well, and it can be their own spin on things. It's fun seeing Veronica Mars in 12 Angry Men because of the type of character she is. She fits into that world. And maybe the sad truth is that Jean-Luc Picard just doesn't fit into Indiana Jones.
I feel like Riker would have been a better fit.
Yeah, I'd have still been bored though, I think, to be honest.
I mean, in terms of if you take the exact writing of this and swap in Riker, I'm not saying that would have improved it. I just mean, in concept, Riker is probably a better fit for that Indiana Jones archetype than Picard.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess because the adventurous element is just kind of against what I think of as Picard and what I think of Picard doing. I don't know. Like, if anything, the best ending to this episode would be like he'd finally solved the solution, the conflict between the woman and the Ferengi, and then sat down and he finally got to read his book. So the closing title just comes up over him just reading his book. Executive producer.
Yeah, maybe him throwing away Riker's little statue or something.
That would have been the perfect ending to an episode full of hijinks. So it's not like I wanted a serious story. I wasn't looking for Measure of a Man here.
The first 10 minutes set you up for that kind of fun. Even reminding us of that last episode with Troy's mother makes you think, okay, I want this kind of fun episode, and then it starts teasing that, and then just goes, forget it, we're bored of that now.
Well, I wouldn't phrase it like that. It's just that implies a really weird writing system. But what it does do is that it becomes something where it does something that Star Trek's not known for or good at.
Yeah,
and that's basically it. It tries to do something that it just isn't good at, and
sometimes trying something different and something good is a good thing, right? It pushes the boundaries of the shows forward, and other times it's this.
I'm not so sure I would count just let's do Indiana Jones as trying something different and pushing boundaries.
No, I wouldn't either. I just mean in the sense, in general, try something like.
I mean, it's maybe that's something that Star Trek's done before, but I you know what I mean. It's not.
Other things have definitely.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing that. I meant new, different for this show in particular.
I mean, I've heard stories from TV writing rooms where they'll be breaking down a season of TV, and they'll literally just say, "Oh, we should do a Die Hard episode, or we should do this." And for some shows, that's fine, and depending on what archetype you're doing, that works. I mean, hell. We've even had kind of almost Die Hard on the Enterprise at one point, and that can work because it's there's someone running about in the Enterprise, and we have to do something about it. That could totally work. And like you say, maybe Riker is the Indiana Jones. But to be honest, whenever Star Trek tries to do something like this on a planet or on somewhere where it tries to make the adventure more about our character with a supporting cast member, it tends to suffer more often than not.
It does, and funnily enough, the best examples of this style of episode have actually been the holodeck ones with like the Sherlock Holmes or the detective ones, where they've kind of really leaned into it, really gone for it, and because they're in the holodeck, they can lean into the trappings even more so. I think that commitment to it actually has made those episodes work better than this, where it tries to do, okay, it's that movie, but it tries to do it in a relevant, real context to Star Trek's time period, as opposed to the holodeck, where they could just, we'll just say it in that time period, it's fine.
Yeah. I still maintain this feels like a holodeck episode. It just happens to not be in the holodeck.
I think, I agree, but I think it actually suffers by not being in the holodeck, because it's forced to feel like, no, this is the current day, and this is where we are in the world, and not just, screw it, we'll say in the 1930s, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually agree that being in the holodeck would make it any better, but I mean, that's just... I don't know. I don't think the story that we're trying to tell here with Picard really works for them. So I think it was just an idea that was kind of DOA. I mean, the fact that one of the first things I said was, here's what I wish the episode was based on the first 5 minutes. And if I'm doing that, then it usually means the rest of the episode, what they chose to do with their story, just didn't work for me. That is episode 19. Hopefully we get something better next time. So let's look ahead to episode 20. We have an episode called Tin Man.
I'm assuming a Data episode, but I could be wrong.
Nothing about him in the description, but here's the description of IMDb. The Enterprise reaches out to an alien being while dancing around with the Romulans, who want to attack in an act of vengeance. So, very vague, not a whole lot to go on.
Potential anytime there's Romulans involved, right?
Yeah, no. I have no concerns based on anything it just said. So, things have been mostly pretty great. We've had a couple of weaker ones here, but like, you know what, they've earned some weaker ones. They had a really good run there for a bit.
We're kind of letting them off because we had such a good, 6 to 8 episodes or so in the middle of the season where it's like, okay, fine.
I mean, there's always going to be the stinkers. Like
there is. I think it's a little bit more irritating having them in batches like this, where, okay, all the good ones were really concentrated in one area. And while that's great while you're in those episodes, it's kind of frustrating on either side.
I mean, it's only been 2. I wouldn't...
It's 2 for now, but I'm just,
Yeah, but it's a bit... You're stretching a bit to just assume that we're in a block of shit.
I'm not saying it's necessarily shit. I'm saying I'm kind of expecting right now for it to not live up to some of the other episodes. But, I mean, it can prove me wrong.
Yeah. So Tin Man's next time. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters for mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel, you do it a couple of ways. You can like on YouTube. That helps us out a lot. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you recommend us out to other people, and YouTube will promote us out to people and recommended videos and things like that. You can also support us financially over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv for as little as $1 per month. So go and have a look and see if you're interested. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and remember that when it comes to the ladies, statue or no statue, Wesley Crusher is in complete control.